a lot of minutes to approve by looking at the readers and
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I don't have 7 o'clock yet. We'll wait till 7. All right, 7 o'clock. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. 7 o'clock, Tuesday, November 23rd. As we gather here today, we acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. So is there any additions to the agenda before we motion to adopt?
Or any addition to the agenda?
Yeah, is there any additions?
Yeah, under in camera, just want to review section 162 of the act. Just get a reading opinion on that.
For in camera, is that right? In camera, Joe?
In camera?
In camera.
Okay. Okay. So I'll take a motion on the table to drop the agenda, please.
So 162 or 165?
I'll move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed say nay. Okay, we're moving on to adoption of the minutes for October 12th, 2021 minutes. Motion to approve.
To approve the minutes as presented. Sorry, which minutes?
October 12th, 2021. Seconder,
I'll second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, 3.2, which is October 26th minutes. Motion to approve.
I'll approve the minutes as presented.
Seconder.
Second. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to follow up on one item in that set of minutes, or 2 items, sorry. Was there ever a follow-up conversation had with the high schools regarding the vaccination verification stuff that we withdrew our support from? And then resolution 2021-304, there's no note of my declaration of conflict.
Sorry, 2021 dash
304.
Okay. Okay. All right. So we won't approve those until that is done. So that'll be carried. Or sorry, not carried, but tabled, right? Do I need to do any, like, because we already have that on the, how do we do with that?
For minutes?
Yeah.
If there's any errors or omissions, you just let them know, and then as long as the table agrees that it was declared conflict and it wasn't back in error in the minutes, then it just passes in the minutes.
Okay. So it was that, and what was was there any follow-up with multiple, and what was the response?
At the end of the day, they're taking responsibility for the vaccination.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion's carried. 3.3, which is motion to approve the special meeting on October 28th.
I'll move.
Second. Okay, thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, motion is carried. Okay, so we're moving on to 4.1, which is a delegation from a letter presented from Kelly Fisk. Kelly, you're on the line. Kelly, can you hear us?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Thank you for being here tonight. Council has had the letter presented, so you do have the floor if you want to add anything else.
Just try to turn it up here a little bit. Yeah, just regarding my letter on your meeting on November 9th, just been going through and listened to their watch this meeting 3 or 4 times and did some notes and follow up on it in the bylaws and the Northern Municipal Acts and stuff like that, and just reading a few key principles like members of councils are committed to performing their functions with integrity, and to avoiding the improper use of influence of the office and private conflicts of interest, I guess, was probably one of the biggest ones for me, in saying that there was an apology made in that, and then became on November 9th was the meeting of, I believe, the strength of that apology. In section 2 states the bylaw supplement to the Northern Municipalities Act is something that was brought to my attention. In 162.2, again, which I believe is in our bylaws too, a member of council should not use his or her office or seat to influence a decision made by another person to further the member of council's private interest, or to improper further another person or a person's private interest, which was very evident that this was happening again. There was an apology which from council on November 9th was obviously revoked, or by from what I could see. The behavior on November 9th, meaning completely negated any apology, and yeah, but it stated truly who the councillor or how they feel, or not being able to follow, whether it was the bylaw or the Municipality Act. In 165 1E, contravene subsection 130.1, section 160 or 162, council is not the place for individuals to accuse others or to present concerns with the intent to harm or discredit anyone. When a councillor makes these type of comments, and the mayor allows these type of comments to be made, both individuals can and should be held accountable for these comments. In her, the councillor's rant through this, she stated to you guys as council and administrators, and Councillor Desiree is the only councillor member negatively impacted. Administrator not following proper procedure. Administrator launching formal investigations. Another council member misinformed, led, smeared Council Desiree's reputation. So again, not only is she now attacking you guys as councillors, and which in turn, which I believe was brought up in this meeting, represent our community, and you guys are the face of what represents that. So in saying that, whatever the rules are in place to be followed, it's actually simplified, because when there's somebody does something to this level, the rules are in place where it doesn't make somebody have to make a decision. The decision's already made. So also during this is from what you've all seen many times, her actions of aggressive, improper body management, unbecoming of a council member, shouting, thumping the table, pointing at other council members and making other council members uncomfortable, to the point where people were trying to leave the room because she refused to come to order, which I believe at a point Council Joe Herditsky had asked for order, and that wasn't received either. So continued on the rant of, I believe the administrator had left as well. So in my letter I stated this, and don't believe that us as taxpayers or community members should be seeing this, especially following the apology. This was magnified way worse to me, and yeah, not dealt with properly. So the rules are in place to deal with this, and like I said, with reading the Northern Municipal Act, which I believe trumps trumps your bylaws, or trumps bylaws, or basically gives you things to follow, and all we have to do as council is follow. So as a a taxpayer, a huge taxpayer and somebody involved in the community, seeing lots of positives. It was disturbing to see the performance and the lack of respect for each other. It is kind of a little bit disappointing that I guess somebody in the community has to address this, because again, after reading bylaws and municipal acts, all these things are in place. We just have to follow them. And this doesn't come from me. I'm just basically the messenger. Do I believe in everything I'm saying? Absolutely. But there's many people that feel this way, and so it has to be brought forward. One thing the constant thing that I was, I guess, a little bit surprised about, this is probably one of the biggest forms of bullying that I've seen, where refusing to stop and listen, refusing to listen to any other councillors, refusing to stop when the mayor asks that, and continues on the rant that just gives the credibility of council. Yeah, and that's just a concern of mine completely. So I appreciate you guys listening to that, and I hope with my letter presented to council that we will go forward with this.
Thank you, Mr. Fisk. I'll quickly respond, and councillors, you can respond as well. As the mayor and the leader of this table, I will take full responsibility for the actions that did happen on November 9th. I think that there's a lot of learning opportunities for everyone at this table, and know that your letter has not gone to deaf ears. There are things that we as a council are very proud of that we have accomplished, and I think that we can continue to do that moving forward. So again, I'll thank you very much for your letter, and know that we all have to take responsibility for our actions, but I will personally, as the mayor and as the leader of our council table, even take more ownership for that. So thank you again for bringing that to our attention tonight. Does anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I'll make some comments. Thank you, Kelly, for bringing this forward on behalf of many residents in L'Orange. I've been at this table for 24 years, holding public office in L'Orange, and I've never experienced this kind of behavior. I've always viewed the council chambers as sacred ground, a place for us, given to us by the community to act on their behalf, a place of honor and a place of respect. What happened on November 9th at the Committee of the Whole meeting was a breach of that confidence. However, I hope that the rest of the council won't be judged by the actions of one. I personally felt frustrated and ashamed as this abuse carried on for some 35 minutes. And at one point, I did try to raise a point of order, but it was not recognized and I wasn't given an opportunity to speak. Going back to the previous incident of the town office involving a staff member, council was engaged in the Ethics Commission. The conclusion of that report was that Council Bashara had breached the Code of Ethics. She was asked to apologize, and she did, and the file was closed. Thought everything was done. This was believed to be enough corrective action to be taken, but apparently it was not. Council Bashara decided to use the council chambers as a stage which was being broadcast to the public. She willfully launched her accusations against the administrator, council, and staff. By carrying on with this outburst, Councillor Bashara breached both common law and the code of conduct. So I think it comes down to two choices to restore public confidence. First is to ask Councillor Bashara to resign willfully, and second option is to have her removed from office as provided in the Act.
Thanks, Councillor, and that's something that we can move to an in-camera discussion beyond that, is how I feel proceeding forward. Anybody else want to make any comments?
I'd just like to say thank you, Kelly, and whoever you're being the messenger for having the courage to bring up a delicate topic and actually bring something forward that's hard to talk about. So thank you for the courage in doing that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fisk. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care. Okay, we move on to correspondence, which is correspondence to receive a letter from Ron Warner. This is, I believe, just a receive and file. If anybody wants to make any comments about the letter received from Mr. Warner.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the letter.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Comments, questions?
Is there a number on that one?
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay. The motion is carried to receive and file. All right, move on to CEO and administration reports. 6.1, which is the RC strategy presentation, September 14th.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just bringing this up today. I know that RC Strategies did a number of surveys with the town and brought forward their findings and recommendations for future Uniplex on September 14th. And just looking for feedback on the options that they presented in the document, so I can circle back with RC Strategies and provide that feedback for them to move forward through this process.
So Connor, I'm a bit confused where we're at in the process of this, and maybe you can bring me up to date, because I thought that we were still waiting on further information from RC Strategies. So, am I misinformed with that?
I believe so. They had presented their options on the 14th, is what I understand, and they are looking for feedback from council in which direction they would choose based on the options and the survey feedback that they've shared.
So, if I'm not mistaken as well, I believe that they did a public consultation with certain stakeholder groups, but they hadn't gone to the full public, and that there was going to be some additional survey results coming back. That's what I originally thought when we accepted the presentation.
Yeah, I'm under that impression as well. So, Connor, are they, like, what specifically are they looking for direction on? Like, what we're going ahead with, or... Because I don't see a report attached to this. Was there a report attached to this?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see. Does anybody else have that?
I have the
Yep.
report.
Yeah.
It's a project update, council presentation.
Yeah, no, I see that, but is there a formal ask? You know what I mean? Like, normally we have some sort of report that's attached to this, like
The
a...
issue report?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't see an
What would
issue.
you like to see?
yeah. Connor, is there an issue report that should be attached to this?
No, I did not create an issue report for this topic today.
Okay.
I understood that we had seen this this previously. What is attached today, and RC Strategies and I have been discussing what the next steps are and what I have heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, because again I wasn't here on the 14th when this was initially presented. But my understanding and what I received back from RC Strategies is they're waiting on their next steps until they get feedback from this council on what they have presented.
They requested from council on the 14th feedback, and one council provided feedback. That's why he's come back for additional interaction.
Okay, for me, I need a proper issue report sent so that we know exactly what we're providing feedback for. Because I don't quite understand. Like, are we deciding what option we're going ahead with? Like, I mean, I've sifted through this report, but
My recollection of this item was that we were asking for a bit more detail. There was going to be more detail in the costing approaches for what options there were. I may be incorrect, but that was my impression, and that there would be a first draft of the report coming.
yeah, like I'm a bit confused with this right now. So can I request that an issue report come through and really being specific as to what specific direction you're requesting?
Yeah,
A suggestion perhaps is that there be some email correspondence that we can, because you know, if I missed responding to an email requesting feedback on this, that's my mistake. But you know, if there's specific sections that we should be reviewing in detail and providing feedback and collating that and providing that to, like, as a bit of a review group, then we should definitely be doing that.
Yeah, I'm under the same impression, because if there was some sort of request that went out, I didn't receive that either. So, which counselor sent in information?
Councillor Viviana sent it in that there was a request to council by FEMA.
Yeah, I've heard just provide feedback,
Okay.
right?
I apologize, Connor, but I did not receive that, and apologize if it was missed. So if we can get that sent out again, and perhaps just an issue report, you know, specifying exactly what they want, because quite frankly, I don't understand what this is. Like, I know that I've seen this report, this presentation, but to me, I don't see exactly like what we're giving further direction on.
One thing I'd like clarity on is when they say short-term, medium-term, I'm not sure exactly in years what they mean, what medium-term and what short-term. I would like to know if we've got 10 years, and if within those 10 years, have they identified what costs we would face in the first 10 years, and if you're looking at medium being between 10 and 20, what kind of major costs. They've done an analysis of our building, we should be able to have an idea what the risks are.
Yeah, because when was the last time that they did a presentation to us? So they were here and then...
14th. And this report outlines the capital cost estimates for the options that were presented, including option 1 or 2, curling ring, flexible hall, and future expansion components, all with their own prices indicated for each.
Okay.
And so the specific ask that RC Strategies and yourself are looking for is what option we're choosing?
Yes, I mean, they engaged with the community, they prepared this report, they shared it back to council and are looking for essentially what we thought of their findings and their recommendations before they move forward with shaping a more direct Uniplex feasibility option moving forward.
Is the Uniplex feasibility study separate and apart from the master parks plan? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I apologize, Connor, but it's majority of the people at this table are kind of not understanding where this got missed. So I think we'll have to table this.
If I may,
Yep.
the feedback request came September 14th, because that's when I actually sent the feedback in. Like, I sent it in anyway. So it probably got missed, because I don't think it was via email, it was just verbal. If you have any feedback, email it in. So there might not be an email that was actually requesting it,
I see.
because I sent it in that very same evening. So.
Got it. Okay, yeah, so Connor, if, yeah, I think that we'll table this till next time.
But I think if we're going to table it, I think one of the important things we move forward is the components of the site. What, you know, obviously it's either going to be arena option A or B or
Right.
And some of the other components, we may have to prioritize.
We might have to
afford both. You look at a curling rink for 7 million, or you look at a flex hall for 5 million. What's going to provide the community with the most value? Those are tough choices sometimes, and we have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many people are going to accommodate for 7 million? How many are going to accommodate for 5 million?
Right, which, like, I mean, that's what all the public surveys are there for, I guess, for us to decide. I just feel like it's, to me personally, I feel like there's a lot of, like, those are really big decisions. And I mean, if this is all the public surveying that they're doing, then I guess they've done their job. But I just don't feel this is sufficient. Go ahead.
If we're going to be making big decisions like that, I think perhaps scheduling an outside meeting with RC Strategies to facilitate the conversation, to really like hammer through some of the questions that we have would be beneficial to us if we're making those decisions.
decisions and prioritizing and being able to weigh things against each other and maybe get some of those details that we may not think of at the time answered, so that they can move forward with a more detailed feasibility study and costing and so on.
Like financial planning on that would need to be a heavy part of that. I think in the project status that we received through this presentation on September 14th, we also see the post-master plan requires an internal workshop there as well to discuss ideas and options. And I think that workshop needs to happen for us to really hammer down what we want to see in our Parks and Recreation department. So I don't know if you're able to set that up, Connor, if that's something that we need to do, or through our administrative channels, or if we're able to try and set that up.
Yeah, I can set that up.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we'll table any further discussion until we get a clearer idea of what needs to actually happen there. Move on to 6.2, which is emergency plan adoption. Keaton, are you on the line there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so our tri-community emergency plan has been updated, significantly updated actually. This plan is essentially replacing our old 2002 plan that was created way back then. So at the end of the day, so we contracted this out to a third party to assist in developing this, and we also vetted it through the SPSA to get any kind of feedback from them. And also this plan does align with provincial, I guess you could say, their standards, so it's not, you know, if we declare an emergency in our area, it's not going to be, you know, totally out of this world and different from what the province would be doing. So things that were updated is that it's like more user-friendly. The other plan lacked any critical information. It's easier to navigate, it has proper risk assessments, better formatting, clearly defined roles and responsibilities. And the plan also includes recommended training levels for each of the positions in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, and it also provides a timeline for training. So we wouldn't be training every year, it'd be once every 2 or 3 years with the EOC. It also included the EOC guidelines, which is a separate document, and in that document it includes things like EOC operations, such as shifts, resource management, information management, how to set up and activate an EOC, EOC position checklists, various other EOC forms, and kind of gives you a step-by-step process to creating an after-action report. So when the emergency is done, how to properly do that, and kind of just review how it went. So for financial implications, this was something that I budgeted for in this year's budget. It came well under budget, and so any of the extra monies we actually used to update our EOC at the fire hall. So we included things like a high capacity printer, new chairs, boardroom table, new visual aids, 6 EOC laptops, so those are going to be used for each of the positions. And we will put our new plans onto those laptops, because not everybody has laptops nowadays, and we just want to make sure that those positions can effectively do their jobs. And just various other conference room equipment as well. So tonight we are just looking for council to formally adopt this emergency plan. The other 2 communities, Lapdorn, Jimmy Band, and Arange, also need to do the same as well. Once this is all approved, I will give them on our EOC laptops. If I can answer any questions you guys may have.
I have a quick question. As far as the staffing goes in this guideline for the EOC, that's being distributed by the director as it's whoever we're deciding to do that. Is that correct?
For the
Like if you go to 3.1 EOC staffing, for example, It just says the EOC director will determine appropriate staffing for each activation level based upon an assessment of the current and projected situation. Do we have, like, all the, because there's a lot more roles I see compared to what we dealt with back in the spring. Do we know specifically now, and have we identified who would step into those roles if and when we needed to activate the EOC?
We have identified some roles, some people to fit those roles.
Okay.
EOC staffing, so it evolves. So if it's a smaller scale incident, you don't need to activate all the positions. If it's a larger scale, then you'd have all these positions opened up, right? So it's totally dependent on what the situation is. If it's a forest fire threatening our community, obviously we want as many positions filled as possible. And most likely the province would send up people to help assist with some of these positions as well. EOC director is typically the one that determines who is in each of the roles. And that's generally how it is the EOC director decides.
And who would be the EOC director?
EOC director is typically the administrator.
Okay.
So it'd be either Steve or Gladys of the band, Gavin and Aaron, those types of positions, yeah.
So it just gets decided the day of potentially launching the EOC, is that right?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, and then my last question is then, just as I think back again to the springtime, anyone who sits on council or within the three communities, I guess, has there been an identification for council members not being in any of these EOC staffing positions?
So through our consulting, generally council members aren't a part of the EOC,
Okay.
Emergency Operations Center. For the most part, it's just going to be your staff members or general members of the public. I will just try to find this year's 1 second.
Yeah, I just want to make sure is that in this guideline? I mean, I did try to get through the bulk of this, but I just want to make sure, because I agree that it just makes it a little less contentious potentially, and just it makes it possible for...
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just going to... It's in the plan somewhere. I'd have to find it. Obviously, it's
No, that's okay. I mean, you know,
so there's a program. There's a training, like a training program for council members. It's ICS. I believe it's 402, which is generally just kind of giving council an idea of how an EOC works and what kind of their roles are when an EOC is activated. And that's something that I can bring back to council probably in next year. Budget item, and just maybe have the province come up and do that kind of course with the three councils.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
In the past, the mayor would show up at the EOC when the briefings were there as an observer. He didn't take part in the messaging, and then out there was a communications officer appointed by the EOC that took care of all the messaging. He went out to all the public notices and that. So
really, for sure. So yeah. Oh, sorry, councillor.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to make sure that was clear in here.
So council, it's not like they're not allowed in the EOC. They can come in and observe, as Councillor Ordisky had said. But just generally in the decision making, they're usually left out.
Perfect. Okay, good. No, I just wanted to make sure that that's in here. Anybody else have any questions? Other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the Tri-Communities Emergency Management Plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further questions, comments?
Also in there, and it says that the mayor be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the town.
That's a part of the motion, amendment to the motion.
The only comment I would say is there's a lot of work went into that, and thank you for all those involved in putting that together.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you very much, Keaton, for that. Okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The motion's carried. Okay, we move on to 6.3, which is offer to purchase for final consideration of lot 10, Block 28, Plan 102-111-422. Robbie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
So I think that we spoke about this at the committee of the whole, and the straw vote was that we were, I believe, mostly in favor, or it was split. Does anybody have any further questions for Mr. Bender?
I just wanted to let you know that my position hasn't changed. I don't think that's a fitting, even though the price is right, I don't think it's a fitting development for the industrial area.
Okay, does anybody want to put a motion on the table?
I move that council accepts the offer from Todd Weinhofer to sell lot 10, block 28, plan 102-111-1422 for an amount of $20,000 plus GST as presented.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, we'll call the question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, just a note, planning wise, it's a permitted use as the lot exists. So, reasons to deny the sale are, there's not a lot on paper to deny a sale.
Was there an addition for a condition on this that you brought forward?
It's just permanent structure in the land to be erected within a certain time frame was my clause that I'd like to see there. I don't think it has been added from what I've seen, but that had to have been.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one question I would have, is there any time frames for substantial development on that being included in the agreement?
Robbie, has there been anything added to that, or?
Yeah, it's just the typical sales agreement that normally base stuff off of. Typically, I think it's 2 years to substantial completion of the building, I guess. We're still working on the draft of the agreement. Once council approves the sale, we'll finalize the details. I think, yeah, so we got a deposit up front and then $2,000 development deposit, as well as the remaining of the purchase price to be paid within, I forget the exact amount of months from the date of sale.
So that is one of the stipulations though in the agreement of sale, is the 2-year completion of, it is, okay.
Yeah, I don't have the exact details in front of me, but yes, there should be there's a clause about substantial completion, or I forget the clause, but yeah, 2 years to the development on site.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I abstain.
Okay, motion's carried. Move on to 6.4, which is the building and development report from Mr. Bender. Anything substantial to add to this, or just receive and file tonight?
Just received a file, nothing really much to add. I mean, the building scene is kind of slowing down, but there is some work on a few property owners, some renovations, residential renovations, and we've got the shelter permit going on there too. So there's some stuff in the works, and I've got a plan for next year too. So there's still a little bit, but it is kind of what you're seeing where stuff does slow down a bit.
Okay,
Go
perfect.
ahead.
Thank you.
That's a different motion.
Okay. All right, so we just need a motion on the table.
I'll move to receive and file the building and development report.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Thank you, Robbie. Oh, sorry, I guess I've got to file that later, sorry. I'll see you in a
My
minute.
motion would include receiving and filing all reports submitted for building and development. That's acceptable to the chair.
For which one?
Oh, my motion would encompasses all building and development reports. And,
I think that's, oh, sorry, I see.
there's the two
Yeah,
documents, but they're complementary.
okay, yeah. All right, so we're moving on to 6.5, the Snowfall response discussion. I believe that this came from Councillor Rees, sorry.
Yeah, is Sasha online or?
Oh, she's not on the line tonight.
Okay. So I guess around the timeline, I know that there was an updated memo sent out with that update. With that being said, we are a week from like a large snowfall did occur, and there's many residential streets that are basically impassable. There's citizens who actually still can't access their homes and have had to kind of do what they can with shovels to create pathways into their driveways. Example being trying to drive into my workplace, going up, what's that street that you walk on Brown Street?
That's Benson.
Finlayson? Is it Finlayson?
Oh, you walk.
Like the office downtown, the clinic?
Yeah.
Like if I didn't have all-wheel drive, I wouldn't be able to drive up that street, right? Because the snow still, it's a mess, right? So I guess, for myself, what I think the solution would be is to pay out a little bit of overtime and have crews working in the evenings and alternate hours that extend beyond the regular workday, if we can have staff available to do that, because last year we had a very in-depth conversation around a higher quality of service, and we asked for higher quality of service, and here we are again, a year later, a week after a major snowfall, still waiting for a higher quality of service. So I would just like to suggest that that become a priority, because it's a priority to the citizens of Orange.
If council is wanting to review levels of service, then I would suggest that we, as a council, review and update our policy around snowfall removal, because that is what dictates the actions and implementation of staff. So if we do want a higher level of service, we do need to amend that policy to reflect.
We met and discussed the snow clearing back in the spring or late winter of last year. And I think we were very clear that when there was a major snowfall, that additional resources were going to have to be applied to get, you know, this, especially the main arteries. And there was an agreement to, and that's when the discussion about having the contractor do the cleaning at the rink, because it just seemed to, if there was an ice bowl game and it kind of got pushed into a spot that it wasn't a priority, which was out of place. And so there was discussion about hiring a contractor to do that. And that part of that discussion is that if the town resources cannot handle that within a reasonable time, that an outside contractor be engaged, whether it's one truck or a grader or whatever it takes to speed up that process. I thought that was perfectly clear after we had the discussion, but apparently not, because we haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, I
And we're
would,
still with the same dilemma. We get people complaining about the same thing we complained about the last 3 years.
yeah,
That our snow clearing is just not very good.
I would agree with you on that. Steve, do you know if it's is it a staffing issue, is it an equipment issue, are we not going and seeking outside contractors to get that?
So the inquiries were made to the outside contractors on Tuesday morning last week, and not one was able to help. We called every available contractor in the community. Initially, LA Petroleum had offered, but they ran into an incident at the co-op. So everybody's flat out. The contractor we do have a contract with did help us a little bit at the hockey rink. We had to go and help another client for whatever reason. So we did make inquiries, and actually 2 of them didn't even pick up their phone because they were just flat out busy. So right at the start of it last week, we did make the inquiries. Typically, a snowfall is depending. I mean, if you can clear as much snow as quick as you want. It all depends how much money you want to put on it. But typically, a snowfall like this takes at least 2 weeks to clean up in our community.
Which would fall under our current policy.
If you go down to Prince Albert right now, there's still streets with 6 to 12 to 18 inches of snow on main drags right now. So typically, a big snowfall like this, no matter how much resources you throw at it, it's going to take a good 2 weeks to clean up. So we did initiate conversations on Tuesday morning last week to bring the contractors in to start getting town hall, because we had a kid and a mom slip in front of town hall last week, so we got that cleaned up pretty quick. Also, we had contract. We just couldn't get anybody help.
Okay. And it's not, we don't have any staff that's off or anything?
There's a little bit of short staffing there right now, but it's just, they were flat out. I mean, the guys were going, we changed our processes a little bit on Tuesday morning, got involved there a little bit, and our lead hand was taking 50 to 60 phone calls, where that was slowing them down a little bit, so we changed the processes there a little bit, and then started managing a little more directly on the process. But it just strictly is resources. We can clean the snow up within 48 hours. It's how much resources the town wants to put on it.
Right, because it was a significant snowfall, for sure, which I think was the same as last year, right? We had a huge dump at the very, very beginning, but.
Yeah, that one.
But so like, again, like policy, like as Councilor Bashar says, and forgive me because I haven't reviewed it lately, but all that is in place there, right? Like and we just don't have the resources or?
If administration has the number, what is our annual budget for snow removal?
I can tell it's not it.
Okay, I'm just curious, like, knowing the numbers, like putting the numbers out to like be able to gauge a snowfall like this, the 2-week cleanup, what that costs the taxpayers. And, you know, having a frank discussion about weighing whether our residents are supportive of us increasing those budgets or want us to, you know, maybe to be more creative with those budgets or whatever it is. Just having a number in front of us might be a good exercise to kind of frame what those resources cost.
I think an important discussion to have on it is expectation management. I think if we can, you know, if our residents have the expectation that everything is cleared down to bare pavement 48 hours after any snowfall, whether it be, you know, 18 feet or 18 centimeters, that it's done within 48 hours, then we have to have the resources available to respond to that expectation, if that's what we want to do as a council to do it. Right now, in our current bylaw, anything more than 4 inches is a boulevard wind row within 2 days, and time to bare pavement within 2 weeks, right? And what we've heard from our administration tonight even is that typically on a snowfall like what we've just seen is 2-week response. That's something that when we first went through this bylaw and this policy, that we thought was reasonable. And if we go right now and we say, okay, so it was more than 4 inches, let's call it, right? It's more than 4 inches, we go into our time to safe and passable for our priority areas and in the rest of the town. If it's 2 days, it's 48 hours to safe and passable, and we haven't hit that, then it's a performance issue or resource issue, one or the other. If we have all the resources, but nobody went and did it, then it's a performance issue. If we have everybody working full force, then it's a resource issue. And that's something that we need to be given the direction on, because if it's just a performance issue, then we can deal with that through our normal challenge of operations. If it's a resource issue, then we need to talk about that at this table, of upping our ante on that. And that's where, for me, this conversation needs to go, is what is our expectation that we want to say to our residents? And if they say, look, it's 3 days to safe and passable, and they say, well, that's unacceptable, it needs to be today, we'll have to say that, you know, sorry, but that's what we put out as our policy, and we're going to follow our policy. And that's our job. Yes, snow sucks, but we live in Saskatchewan's north, and we have to expect it at some point too, right? There is that fine line that we have to walk.
I agree with what you're saying, Jordan, and I understand, Abby, with our Councilor Shower, you're coming from in terms of budgetary control, but it also is, as many citizens pointed out, a matter of safety, right? If we have vehicles on the road unable to control, like a driver can't control the vehicle because the snow kind of dictates where you're driving, and we have children and other adults walking on the road because they can't walk on the sidewalk, right? We're just looking for an accident to happen. And yes, residents do have their share of responsibility in terms of, we encourage them to clear their own sidewalks, right? But not everybody does that either, and not every sidewalk has a home where someone can do that, right? So I just think we really need to address this in a better way, because it's year 2 of us at this table. It came up last year. We thought we had basically the problem solved, but yet here we are again, right? And again, we asked at that point in time for a higher level of service, and I'm just feeling that we're not getting it.
I think when we're developing policy, I think if you look at the critical areas, like the high priority areas, not taking any longer than, if the manager can't decide or can decide it's going to take more than 48 hours, then you bring in resources so that at that point, you're not making the sub-streets wait any longer than, I know in the past, they've taken a path with the loader just in the middle of the street, just so vehicles could move. They didn't do the whole street, but just little things like that to get people so they can get to work and case of emergency as well. If somebody has an emergency and they're stuck in a, you know, it's the safety of the community. So I think when we look at policies, if you can't do the main areas in 48 hours, you know, that's just a number I'm throwing. Then you get the resources to help you out, and then you can just let the resources go and concentrate your own resources on the other streets. You know, something like that would make a lot of sense. We have nothing done for a week on some of these streets. It's been over a week since the snowstorm, and there's still people that can't get around. It's not acceptable.
If I can, Mr. Having go first.
I was just going to say, to Councilor Reed's point, I'm all for having another look, and I guess this speaks to your comments as well. I am all for having a look at this policy again and understanding why it's not achieving the expectations that we have of it. Because I do believe that our staff are implementing the policy that we've given them, and we need to respect that and understand our role in how that dictates what actually is actioned. And you know, if we don't have external resources to tap into, then maybe we need to rewrite the policy to better get at, like, yeah, you know, at Cook Crescent today, they were plowing Cook, they got the windrow up, and I was actually surprised at how quickly it happened, because usually my street's the last street to be done. And you know, I noticed that they cleared the end of the street, just like pushed the snow out of the way at the end of the street to make it safer getting onto Bedford. Things like that, the little things I've noticed in the emergency routes were clear right away, like they were pushing on those. So I was actually really proud of our staff and the action that they took with this absolute dump. It always catches us by surprise. Like, I can't imagine being the staff waking up the next day or the day after the storm, like, and having to put in that work. So kudos to our Public Works transportation team that did get out there and slog through it. But yeah, I am all for bringing that policy back and maybe finding a way to write it better so that the expectations that we have or residents have can be met better.
Okay, so a few things. So one, our management of snowfalls can be better. So there's management and performance issues there. So for example, right now we're discussing it. Instead of starting at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, most municipalities will start at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and get out of it. So there's things that we could have done better last week, and I had to jump in there and actually help out a little bit, provide that direction. So there is definitely some management issues in there. We have to perform better in terms of how we set it up and how we get knocked down. We did have a loader go down at the end of last week. A brake line went down and went out of commission. That's just because we're using older equipment. We do have 2 loaders coming in here very shortly. But there is a significant opportunity there to improve on the management of it and actually making it less intensive for the residents by starting earlier in the morning. Because typically you start with 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know the snowfall is coming. You start the guys off early in the morning. The other aspect that is, and it's again, it's a battle every municipality has, is vehicles on the road. Vehicles parked, vehicles on the sides. There's some communities now that ticket vehicles and give them a $100 ticket for parking during major snowfall. That's all written, that's all abilities we have. Again, it's coming down to actually implementing and managing the performance of it. I think we are resourced to put in context compared with communities running one greater town. I know I had a former mayor that used to say that they're one greater town, and that was for 7,000 people. So it's a matter of managing the performance and actually utilizing the resources where I had to make calls last week to get the outside resources going.
Okay. Anybody else?
Do we have, so like through our personnel policies, like a senior volunteer, junior non-volunteer on emergency snowfall for overtime?
There's typically on-call people, if that's what you're referring to.
Like we have an on-call for like, you know, water and sewer operator, kind of something goes down. I think is that the on-call you're referring to, or like an on-call grader operator as well?
No, I mean, typically though, when you know the major snowfall's coming, you can juggle the schedules ahead of time and get everything lined up.
Right. And that's kind of what I was wondering is like, if we say, sorry, we're getting 40 centimeters of snow, we're going to 12-hour days until it's cleared. I mean, people have the right to refuse overtime unless it's an emergency situation, right? Like a lot of these things are essential services. Can
I
get,
mean, they have the right to refuse overtime, but if you give enough notice for shift changes, you can change them. I mean, if you know the Snowfall's coming, you know it's got 7 days out, change shifts, start at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock, give shift differential, whatever you gotta do. 99% of the time they don't do it because they also need to drive down those streets because they live in the community.
no, and I get that. So that's what I was wondering is like if we had this, if there was any resistance to a change of shifting or earlier shifting or anything like that, do we have the right to still look at those kinds of policies should we need to? If we're not having that, then I don't think the conversation needs to go very much further than that. But like for me, if maybe in our page 3 of our snow removal bylaw, where we talk about the level of service, maybe we need to add another section in there of more than, 6 inches, 8 inches of snow, where it'll be, priority 1 will be done within 2 days and priority 2 will be done within 4, or we keep our expectation exactly where it's at and we just resource it entirely to get that done, right?
I think if you actually implement better management practices, Councillor, you're going to see a little bit better result.
Okay. All right. With that, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, anybody else want to add? Okay, so that will come back, right? And or is it just, we're gonna look at our...
Further discussion here.
Okay, perfect. We want to financial statements and updates, 7.1, which is the budgetary control report. Oh, I'm so sorry, I completely went over that. Sorry, thank you. Point of order there for 6.6, acceptance of resignation for Steve Brown, CAO. So on October 28th, just so this is in the public here, council received resignation from our CEO, Mr. Steve Brown, for an effective as of December 3rd. And this is just a formality so that it is in the public and we accept that. I don't know if we need a specific motion for that. Do we need a specific motion for that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Also,
Seconder?
I'll second.
Any further questions, comments, concerns?
Just wanted to say again, Steve, I know that we've privately had the conversation, but publicly I do want to say thank you for your service to the town of Orange. I know that you provide a high level of service to our community, and thank you for your time and your work here. And wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
And I'll echo that too. I think that you've done some fantastic, contributions to our town, and I want to thank you very much for that. So I wish you all the best in your future endeavors as well.
I'm just gonna vote no, that people not accepting the resignation, so that's what I mean. So.
I guess you're gonna call the question.
I will call the question, yes.
Yeah.
So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, so it's defeated. I mean, the resignation is a resignation, so, there's nothing that can be done at this point, so.
Just as formality, Steve, do we make the changes to signing authorities effective like December 3rd at this meeting? And do obviously the next meeting that we'll have to have a motion to put out the job posting and all those kinds of things to find your successor.
Yeah, the motion to remove the signatories and all that can happen the next meeting, for sure.
Okay. So, but it'll have to be a special meeting because it'll be a committee of the whole, right?
It'll be a council meeting. But the next meeting is the council.
Oh, December's, yeah, sorry.
Just as a quick question, in regards to process, are we not needing to issue an advertisement immediately for recruiting the position? Do we not need to action that immediately?
You don't have resignation.
We do.
Yes. And regardless if council votes to accept it or not, it's an effective resignation. And we need to look after the interests of the municipality and understand how succession is going to happen from here on. Because if we don't have qualified CAO in the position, then we're not compliant with legislation.
And we have the potential to lose out on a lot of funding as well if we're not compliant as well. So we have to be very, very meticulous and very task-driven now moving forward.
We've had a previous job application that has been used within the year. I'm comfortable with making a motion to advertise the CAO position with the previous job description that we had. Obviously there'll be some minor changes that need to happen, but I think if council is comfortable with a posting of the job, that I'm willing to make a motion to post the position of the CAO for the town of Orange through our normal advertisers.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
You have a question?
I think I'd like to leave it just for a moving period and maybe there's opportunity to resolve things. I don't know, but I want to leave the opportunity there. I don't want to close the door on it.
Opportunity for what?
So there's time to act on. Once we get our new counselor, we can come up with a plan as to how we move forward. I think we're a week away from by election. We need to just let it rest. We don't have a resignation approved, accepted. We leave it at that until after the by-election, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I just want to really state this to you, Councillor, is that the longer we wait, because we're also coming into the Christmas period, where we're going to lose about another 3 to 4 weeks as well. That's going to put us behind. So if we do not activate and start moving forward, because we've had this since, well, almost a month. So we're already 3 weeks behind. And effectively, Mr. Brown has indicated that your last day is December 3rd, right? So, you know, he has indicated that his resignation is firm and that he will be leaving on December 3rd. So if we wait any longer with anything moving forward, and this conversation, I mean, will continue in camera anyways, but I just want to make that really clear that, you know, I get that that we're going to grieve that a
few
little bit.
days aren't going to make a difference in terms of, we're still going to be, if it ends up being December 3rd, we're still going to be with an interim person. So a week isn't going to make any difference whether we advertise a week from now.
As a matter of process, we've received the resignation from our CAO. This is not a position that we have a choice whether or not we backfill or not. This is something that we definitely need. And for me, the reason why I put the motion forward for the job application, whether there be a resolution or not to having a resignation on the table, or whether or not that is sought after, or whatever the case may be. Right now, as it stands at this point in the meeting, is we have an effective resignation of our CAO, effective December the 3rd. And if that's withdrawn and council decides to continue to move forward with our current CAO, then we have every opportunity to close an application and continue on with exactly what we're doing. We don't need to, just because we've advertised for a job does not mean we have to hire it. We can fill it at any point by anyone. And that's why for me, if we start the process of looking for somebody to replace as to what we're going to have a vacancy as of December the 3rd, formally as of what we know right now, we have a duty and obligation to the people that have put us at this table to make sure that we're providing good administration. And we've had that, which I've stated earlier, in accepting the resignation of our CAO. But we still need to find that replacement and that successor. And that's to me why this is out there. And I mean, as a point of order, I have made the motion to put that out there. I don't know if there's a seconder to that yet.
Yeah, there was.
There was?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess as a point of order, we specifically discussed whether or not we I would request that we specifically discuss whether or not we're going to post the application for the CAO position.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion's defeated. Okay, so, we will move on to, the financial statements and updates, 7.1, which is the budgetary control report. And I think there's check registry, bank reconciliation. Is there anything, anybody has any concerns or questions about? Or can we receive and file? All three.
I read through them last night, and I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the budgetary control report, check registry, and bank reconciliation.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, motion's carried. 8, which is your bylaws. Bylaw 655/21 for the first reading for the sale of Tremblay land, sale 1. Robbie, you're still there?
I'm still here, yeah, it's not, sorry. It's not a land sale yet, I guess, but. Yeah, everyone had a chance to read the report, or?
Is there any concerns from your side?
Well, I guess just a quick summary, I guess back in, I forget the dates exactly, I guess council previously accepted or offered the sale of a section of land that the fence encroaches on, the portion on Tremblay Street. I guess for the purchase price of $500. But working with community planning to finalize this, so let me go back a step. I guess previously we passed some bylaws and to close and lease a portion of this Tremblay Street. That didn't get approved by community planning because of the current encroachments on it. So we've been working with community planning to best sort out this portion of area this fence was encroached onto to work with the adjacent property owner. Council previously agreed to sell that portion of land for $500. We're working with community planning and surveying. They, due to the planning and just the way it works out, they recommended that instead of using that portion only that council approved just for that fenced-in area that was approved that they installed the fence on, then we move the whole property line over the required amount of 2.79 meters. So basically, there's a change in the purchase price relative to the size of the area that council approved. If council doesn't have any issues with that sale of land, it's approximately 4 times the size. There'll be a zone C3 commercial eventually consolidated to the adjacent lot. If council is okay with the same sale price, then we can pass the appropriate motion. And if we're okay with the land sale as it is, there is some draft bylaws that were attached to the report there that council could have first readings. One is the zoning bylaw amendment, 2 is the OCP, and then we need another bylaw to close that portion of Tremblay Street from L'Orange Avenue all the way to shoreline. And basically we'll be rezoning that area 3 different parts, well, I guess 3 different parcels entirely. One will be C3 commercial for the adjacent property owner. The other one's like a municipal reserve, but not, sorry, municipal utility reserve, I believe it's called. Because we do have that lift station on that section of land. And then the rest will be at MR2 for municipal reserve. And I'm thinking that now there's that dock there we've had previous upland shoreline lease with Carlson Fish for that dock. That since if we do designate as municipal reserve, then we can still go back to doing an annual upland shoreline lease for that purpose. There's a lot of information there. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So the balance of Tremblay Street, the part that we are selling off as an extension to the property, how does that get zoned? Is that
Say again?
The balance of the street, it's no longer going to be a street, it's going to be closed. So how is it going to be zoned? Is it become a public reserve or what is it?
Portion of L'Orange Avenue to the lake, it will be zoned, it will be a code attached zoning bylaws by the Sharon.
That's, right, why you looked that up, I just wanted to check.
On the zoning would be 65621 would be the zoning amendment.
If I may weigh in just quickly here, I believe that section of Tremblay Street has already been closed legally.
So this is all originating from the community planning branch shutting down the previous effort of council. So this is the actual solution right now to fix it all. They actually, the community planning branch out of Saskatoon put a stop on it. This is the solution that they come up with to fix the initial ask.
They couldn't approve it because there's current encroachments on that land. So we had to eliminate the encroachments by the subdivided portion of.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, community planning requires us to rezone and subdivide the land, or no, rezone the land so that we can then subsequently subdivide the land and close the road? Or what's the order of operations with this?
Well, I guess first of all, before we go down this route of closing a portion and subdividing and passing all these bylaws, right, council should have to make, I think council should pass a motion, because originally approved the sale for $500, a small portion, and now it's an area 4 times the size. So if the council's still in favor of that, then yeah, I'd like to have that motion. Then, yeah, then we can have the first readings of those bylaws.
Okay, so if I'm reading your report correctly, the information that we have before us, it went from a 1.65 meter wide by 15 meter long section to an almost 3 meter wide section all the way the depth of the property adjacent. So 4 times the size. We have an appraisal of land down there at $20.77 a square foot, which would put that.
Okay.
Sorry?
That's based on the recent land assessment, based on
Right.
land values. Based
Right.
on
So other property owners that we're, potentially in negotiation with, we're working with those numbers. So that would put that portion that is now that 4 times size section would then equal approximately $24,300 would be the appraised sale price if we use the appraisal numbers that we're using, correct?
yeah, I didn't do the math, but yeah.
Okay. And currently, the 1/4 size portion, we have an in principle agreement to sell that for $500.
Right, based on the letter from the previous administrator,
Okay.
take down your fences. Yeah, it's all about the fence encroachment issue from the municipal reserve.
So there's a fairly large section of commercial property that is kind of what we're discussing about reviewing the agreement for sale and deciding if that is the direction council wants to go, because that is the only option that we have, according to community planning, if we were to move ahead with dealing with this encroachment. We're kind of in between a rock and a hard place with this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For better planning practices, yeah, instead of having a jet out halfway down the line, it's just move the property line over, make it clean and simple, right?
Yeah, so I guess the question I have following that is, has there been consultation with the commercial fishermen that have an adjacent lease, which I'm hearing is still current?
Actually, since we haven't really closed the portion of Trombley Street, couldn't enter any agreements with that for this. I'd have to look at that, we may or may not have an agreement, but this is kind of all part and parcel to clean everybody up.
Okay, and
No, we have had previous conversations face to face with Carson and Fish that, they could be interested in purchasing the land, but.
well, I'm more thinking that, if we're discussing this one specific issue of the sale to correct the encroachment from the adjacent property onto the Trombley Street, as well as correct our utility being on the street. I just want to make sure that the traditional users of, the lake, that access the lake there, that they've been participant in some of the discussions to make sure that this is also potentially not going to negatively affect their ability to access their traditional use.
I look just to follow, but I think we would still have the upland shoreline lease agreement with those people who currently access it.
Okay, and this sale won't encroach on the existing lease?
No, I don't think so, Pitch.
I'd like confirmation of that.
We have the maps line up that the other property owners as their property areas and stuff. Right now, we're just going on that, off of that letter, offer to purchase, or not offer to purchase, but we'll offer to sell.
Principal agreement, yeah.
So if after the road closure, the remaining land gets zoned as public reserve, then anybody who needs to get to the lake can use the public reserve to get there. So I don't think it would be an issue in terms of handling somebody's livelihood or, you know, what they're doing. So I don't think, we just want to make sure that that's what we do, that make the public reserve so the public can use it.
I was going to say something along the same lines, that I guess we know that they have a dock there, that they use it. The dock's a little bit further away to the left if you're facing this way. It doesn't encroach visually, but I guess confirming it with them wouldn't be a bad idea.
Just because I mean, this is high level talk. I mean, I won't be first to admit that I am super up to speed of how this all works, but the purple distinction, because that's visual, I'm a very visual person, is that the land that where the fence would go? Is that right?
To be sold.
To be sold, okay.
To be subdivided and added to lot 10.
Got it. And then the light green, it just becomes community service space.
Because that's where our lift station is.
Right, and then the darker green is parks and recreation that can be enjoyed for. Okay, thank you. I just, that to me makes more sense than all the other jargon that I don't understand, so, okay.
Yeah, and there's a family that has a dock there that uses that traditionally for commercial fishing.
Okay. So Robbie is requesting how council wants to proceed, and so the only thing that I'm hearing is that we want confirmation about that access, right?
Which has been confirmed that it would be.
Yeah, if that's confirmed, then that's great. I just don't want to encroach on an existing agreement that has been made, and I think it was a long negotiation process to get to that point with those users. So I think the question before us is actually the price and understanding, like, does your department, Robbie, or do you have a recommendation about that pricing or you know, the existing agreement, and if it's recommended the council reconsider or go ahead with the existing kind of in principle price agreed to for, you know, 1/4 the size?
I'm kind of mixed on the answer on that one. As much as I want this one to kind of be done and over with.
That can't be the reason.
I don't know. We've been doing this for a couple of years, and it's just, I don't know, I'd like to get this one cleaned up. I mean, it is a portion of the land sale. It is adding a value to that adjacent property owner. I don't know, it's up to council to kind of decide.
Okay.
You know, if the change in size of the parcel was a result of land titles, or, you know, they're concerned about the size of what it should be, then if it's 4 times the size, I think if we agreed on $500, we just times that number by 4, because that was a negotiated number that we came up with.
Actually, it would
And
make,
so if you're gonna times it by 4, it's 4 times the size. It wasn't something the owner initiated, it was something, just solution is identified by the land title.
there's
So
actually,
we're gonna go to councillor. You wanted to speak first?
Just had a quick question in regards to the report that we have right now says that we zone it, do a community service, and then somebody purchases it after a subdivision. Is that land parcel tied to that owner? Because, I mean, if it is, can we not just zone it the same and then they request to have those 2 lots brought together and basically just extend their lot? Because if it's the length of the lot, it's truly just an extension by 3 meters.
It's subdivision processes.
But what I'm saying is if it's not parcel tied, then you can sell that land and then you have a community service lot that you can put anything that is zoned community service on that 3 meter by 100 feet long.
There's a commercial fence encroaching on that slice.
But if you, right, so now if you own that slice, you can do whatever you want on that slice.
Yes.
Right? And that's what I'm saying, is if it's not parcel tied, you can tear down your fence and anything on that property line. And as of right now, that current building, if I'm not mistaken, has the fence encroaching onto municipal land, right? And the current bylaws would even allow some of the equipment that the fence is protecting is already too close to the property line for current zoning principles. So to me, if we don't have that parcel tied, that needs to be in some sort of form of
It will
agreement.
be consolidated as part of the subdivision.
So then it should be zoned the same thing that
It will be, won't
it says CS.
it? No, CS is the green, that's where our utility shed is.
And the purple is gonna be
Purple.
parcel tied and extended and
Shoreline
subdivided
commercial.
onto that.
Yeah.
So it will be a lot extension, parcel tied, and survey stakes moved.
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's what I'm bringing up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Running council, we have a legal agreement to acquire their sell the land for $500.
Right.
So we want to caution council about changing the price of the land. We've already got a legal agreement to sell the land, and he has actually brought his fence down already to comply. So I just want to make council aware that we are kind of tied in an agreement already, previous council I understand, to an agreement to sell adjacent property for $500.
But that was 1/4 of the size.
I'm not arguing with that, but again, there's an agreement to sign which has been turned down from community planning. So we have an agreement to sell land for a fixed price already. I'm not saying we can't change the price, but I caution against changing it to a different value when we've already got an agreement to sell the property.
Isn't the agreement null and void
suggestion-
anyways though, once you change the like main parts of an agreement?
Well, but again, he's already at the other side of the agreement to take the fence down. Again, we went, from my observation, when we put the cart before the horse a little bit, because community planning nixed the approval of it, much to the local surprise here. So I'm just saying is that we have an outstanding agreement right now to sell property in that area for $500.
So then, because it's 4 times the size, using the same value for, would that be a fair?
One would have to follow up with the individual.
Just a subsequent thought to that, so we're in negotiation with other landowners for municipal land adjacent to the lake shore. So if we sell this land, we've basically set our municipal market price for that type of land. So I'm just putting it out there because it's a consideration we should take, because there's implications whatever way we go. We have a legal agreement, we also are in negotiation, we have appraisals, and all of this has happened. So there's a lot to think about on this.
Well, there isn't a legal agreement. That's where this one is different, right? I remember Dean set this up for us, and we agreed to sell it for $500 because it was, in between the shed and that. Dean set this up for us.
Yeah,
and
we agreed to sell that
was the legal,
portion,
and he did his part.
but it's no longer just that portion, right?
I'm just saying, there's a legal agreement, so just because we have to abide by this legal agreement doesn't mean everybody else down the line gets $500 lots.
Yeah, one more and then we're
Would I be
gonna,
able to make a motion that we table this until we get a legal opinion? Like direct to council, like have a discussion with the lawyer to understand our obligations and implications and kind of explore this a little bit further to make sure that we are not putting the municipality in a position of risk.
have a seconder? Okay, the motion is not going ahead with that. So, is anyone else prepared to make a motion tonight?
Well, I think based on the agreement, like I said, the only movement I would say is if there's 4 times the land, basically that $500 would be, you could figure out per square foot what that would be based on what that was, and I think that would be fair, but I don't know, that's my feeling.
Is that the motion that you want to put on the table?
Yeah.
Or,
I was just gonna say, I'd like to make a motion to approach the owner and ask, or not the owner, the prospective buyer, and ask if they would be all right with the purchase price price of 2,000. So it would be 4 times the size and 4 times the price, which would make sense to me.
Just a point of interest with that. So it's 4.14, and just for numbers' sake,
Okay.
is 2,070. So are you proposing?
Yeah, 2,007 would be fine, yes.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion's defeated. Any other motions want to come on the table for this?
I would like to have further discussion to be able to resolve the issue, but I just don't think I'm prepared to make a good decision tonight with the information I don't have. So,
I think for myself, I'll just do a site visit, I'll just do a drive by tomorrow and look at it visually, just to have a better understanding.
Okay. Counselor, I mean, you voted against as well. Is there something further you'd like to see?
For me, I think on any sale of land, if we have our appraiser, and I mean, right now we're discussing the sale of land to one individual, and if we're discussing the sale of land for anybody, I think normally land and legal fall under the in-camera discussions, and I believe that that's where we have to continue these negotiations, so I would be comfortable moving this specific agenda item to the in-camera discussion.
Yeah, I'll agree with that as well. Question?
I just like to say, I agree with the CAO, and I caution council and think about this, because the owner did follow what we asked them to do in the agreement, and they took down their fence. So that's got to be weighed in as well.
Okay, so this will be tabled. We'll add this to the in-camera agenda as well for further conversation.
Point of order, although I have made it, and I would hope that it goes there, I think just for a matter of process, we need to have a seconder to the table and to in-camera and vote on.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, so that moves to in-camera. Thank you, Robbie. Okay, we need a motion for in-camera, please.
I'll make a motion to do
Seconder,
I'll second.
all in favor say aye.
Aye. Can I also make a motion for 5-minute recess?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So one of the viewers texted me that if, like, when they're
Okay,
listening.
hold on just one